Greetings everyone and welcome back. So whilst I was at Gamescom, I got to play the first mission of The Taken King. Unfortunately I wasn't allowed to record it, but I am allowed to tell you what happens and share my opinions on it. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Warning, there'll obviously be spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to know anything about the first mission, click off this video now. Also keep in mind that I only played the first mission, so all impressions are based off what I got to play and not the full expansion. Also note that the build I played was only half of the mission, which we'll talk more about at the end, and some parts are slightly different to what was shown in the trailers. For example, there was some different dialogue, and I wasn't able to scan items with my ghost. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the mission. So the first mission is called The Coming War, and I ran the mission 9 times, 3 on each subclass, and each time was a joy. So the story is the Cabal have been blasting a distress signal on all frequencies, which is unusual behaviour for such a militaristic race. So you've been sent to Phobos by Commander Zavala to investigate. Upon entering the mission, one nice little detail I noticed is that you can actually see your ship fly away after dropping you off as opposed to just disappearing, which I thought was pretty cool. So your ship drops you off, and after taking a few steps up the path, you are greeted by a Cabal ship that rises from below a cliff, but it doesn't even bother engaging you. Instead it just flies off, which is your first hint that something is really off, and puts an emphasis on the urgency of this situation. So as you turn the corner and begin to approach the base, you begin seeing Cabal crawling across the floor as they take their last breath, when suddenly the base explodes, killing yet more Cabal running from the entrance. And in the background there are even more Cabal fleeing in ships, and actually taking off early before the rest can get on board. This first bit alone really captured my interest. There was an actual sense of urgency and curiosity to find out what was going on here. The fact that there was all these little details such as the Cabal crawling across the floor, the ships taking off early, and the Cabal fleet flying away from the base as you look up in the sky, really added to the scene. At this point, Commander Zavala gets Eris Morn on the line to help decipher an exotic energy signature that they've picked up, and since Eris is knowledgeable when it comes to the Hive, she has these abilities, these visions, and so she's there to listen out for messages, only she has the power to hear and decipher them for us. As you enter the base, it almost becomes a horror game. You begin hearing these haunting sounds, almost like screams, and just as you turn the corner, you catch a glimpse of this mysterious orb that zooms off, creating these holes to another dimension that actually have different physics, causing scenery to float around them. Again, all of these are just cool little details that really added to the set and really set the mood. As you push on, you begin seeing Cabal getting pulled into another dimension by this mysterious power, where they become taken, and throughout this whole time, Zavala and Eris Morn are keeping a constant flow of chatter, keeping you updated, and it really kept you engaged. So eventually you were led to this circular open room, and as you're walking down the corridor to approach the room, Eris says they whisper a name. And that's when the big reveal happens. Right when she says that, a massive ghostly projection of Oryx appears in the centre of the room, and let me say, his voice is terrifying. One thing in particular I noticed Bungie did really well was the sound design. It was excellent. I seriously recommend wearing headphones on your first playthrough. It made the whole experience 10 times better, and the music is badass. It really seems Bungie have amped up the audio and the sound effects in The Taken King. So after meeting the one behind all of this, you encounter a Taken Knight mini-boss called Cyrock, Word of Oryx, with his Taken Scions by his side, and he has some new tricks, for example an AoE attack in which he flings fireballs at you, and a very short range teleport ability. Taken Scions now also have the ability to multiply, so if you don't kill them as fast as possible, they'll keep on duplicating themselves and pestering you throughout the entire fight. After defeating Cyrock and his Scions, you must then escape the base and get to your ship. So you fight your way through a bunch of Taken enemies, and when you come out the other side of the base, you get this epic shot of the base falling apart, destruction everywhere, a massive Cabal starship that has crashed into the base, towers being ripped apart in the background, and your ship epically swoops in. But unfortunately, that's where the mission ended. As I said, that was only half of the mission. There's still more to the mission where you have to make it to your ship. Overall, it was definitely one of the much better missions in the game. It really felt like something was always happening. It was a lot more action-packed, there was more interesting dialogue, not just, okay, here's what's happening, talk to you at the end of the mission. And overall, a refreshing experience, especially seeing how it was in a completely new location. The entire time I was wondering, what's next, what's around this corner, what am I going to encounter? and that one mission alone, along with everything else we've seen so far from the trailers, looks very promising. I'm really excited for this expansion, and I really hope it delivers. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time, Guardians.